Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer, as always on the East Coast. And we are reunited once again after a little day separate with the episodes that we had yesterday for you. We're coming back together for the best bets we have in this episode with some sides and totals looks for you on Tuesday night. Also have a player props episode up, and we're bringing both of those to you each and every weekday this season. So make sure to follow along, subscribe to that page, and don't miss any of the action. Let's just go ahead, right into your first bet here. We got 7 games on the slate, pretty void of too many back-to-backs, so we should have some quality bets here for you.
This is a fantastic slate, Josh. The symmetry of 225-25, and we get the Luka revenge spot, and a lot of good betting angles in other games. For me personally, including under in Houston, Milwaukee at Houston, 227 is where it opened, and I guess money's still coming on the over. I don't really understand why, when you have Houston probably getting Fred VanVleet back on his birthday, like his props there a little bit if he's in there against Dame and company. But I mean, with Fred in there, Houston's just so much more organized, so much more deliberate, right? The pace is only down a little bit in terms of number of possessions, but like their half court possessions are just slower, methodical, and they're getting good shots, and their defensive rating is actually 3 points better because he just helps with everything organizing on both ends. It's not as helter-skelter of a game when their identity was so much of like, let's get out and run with Amen Thompson and company. And the thing is with since Udoka's taken over for the Rockets, when he plays the Bucks, he's like, yo, let's not get out in transition with that dude on the other side. Like, we got to keep Giannis in the half court. They played at a 98 pace. The last two, they've had a 105 defensive rating, and the games have averaged 210. And Jabari Smith is back just in time here. He's got 2 games to shake off a little bit of rust. He is absolutely essential to helping with Giannis. We do have Tari Eason cleared, even if Dylan Brooks doesn't go with the illness. So we got a couple bodies to throw at Giannis. And I mean, I talk about the splits with Fred on and off. With Jabari, they have a 108 defensive rating as opposed to 116 without him. So that's going to drive the under. Also, their offense worse. I mean, points are about the same, but their 3-point shooting in particular is what I'm looking at for as far as Houston not blowing this thing up. Is they shoot 33% from deep with Jabari. They're not much better with him. They have the 5th worst effective field goal percentage in their last 10. They're only playing at a 95 pace in the second half, and like I said with Fred, that should be just as slow. And now they're playing a drop D that's like going to dare you to shoot threes, right? And they're just not a good 3-point shooting team. And Dylan Brooks is actually their best 3-point shooter. And I mean, that says something in itself. With Giannis back in the last 3, Bucks have been even better on their drop D shit, right? I mean, 5th lowest amount of shots at the rim allowed and 7th best rebound rate, which is key against Houston denying their second chances. So seems like we should get the same kind of script we saw the last 2 times these teams met.
Yeah, I can see it for sure. I'm also not totally sure. I guess Milwaukee's defense has been something to at least like be concerned about. But I mean, this Houston, like you said, the way that they're playing and the pace that they're going to play at against the Bucks team, I don't know why they would try to speed it up. It's not like they have a great half court offense, but to your point, if Fred is in there, which it looks like he will be, he's on the right side of a questionable tag, then yeah, they're going to have an organized adult in the room style offense with Fred out there. So that organizes everything to your point. And they've still been a very good team. I'm super high on this squad because with Fred out there, they look very, very, very good, even in, these sort of like playoff style atmospheres, which would expect from this one, a game that I would think both teams are definitely keen to win. So let's go to game of the night, right? I was actually really surprised to see you leave me some Lakers and Dallas talk here. And guess what? I'm going with the favorites. I'm taking -9. It's funny because we're both just kind of like, well, there's revenge and who's going to be seeking revenge. To me, if you want to at least just start there and just leave this angle over here of revenge, it's everything for the Lakers. Like who is on Dallas' side at this point with AD out? Max Christie? Like, I'm sorry, I love you, Max. You have a great game. You'd have no right to be mad that you got traded at this point in your career just yet. So I don't think there's anything there. If he has a great game, great. He's not going to impact it to the level that like he's going to be able to necessarily keep this team close with the Lakers, in my opinion. You look at the Lakers, last 10, haven't played great competition. AD was there for like 2 of those games, but they are still 4th in net rating in their last 10 games. A lot of that coming in the last 5 with Luka, obviously. The thing that Luka has brought to this team is the thing he brings to every team: above the break threes and a lot of open shots at the rim because of what he creates by just getting past his man or being too big in the paint where he now needs to get double teamed. And that's where he finds either the shooters up top in the corner or just as likely he's finding some lobs down low. So yeah, love the fact that they're now in number one in rim field goal percentage in their last 10. They're 10th in rim frequency and they're 8th in free throw attempt rate. So all things that we remember the Lakers doing well and LeBron James teams doing well when he's actually going, when he's got his team doing what they do best, which is attack the rim. And obviously a lot of that in the past has been because they have Anthony Davis there, but they've clearly found ways to overcome that. They are now in the top 5 in terms of assists at the rim as well, which I thought was a really telling Luka stat. That's in the last 5 games, all with Luka, right? So you bank on that. They're up to number 1 in effective field goal percentage as well. Not a team that you looked at and go, oh, this is a team that's going to make a ton of threes and get a ton of good looks all over the court unless LeBron James creates it for them. Well, now they have 2 guys creating it for them. So a lot of these guys are going to look a lot better than they have in the past with their ability to get open corner shots and shots above the break, like I said. I would be leaning a little bit more towards the over, but PJ Washington's also questionable. I don't really trust the Mavs to come along for the ride with their offense. The stuff that shows that how they've been struggling, obviously without anybody outside of Kyrie and the boys and occasionally PJ when he's been out there. They're 23rd in net rating in their last 10, 18th in their last 5. And we have seen PJ come back for like 3 of those last 5. So that's helped a ton. But once again, yes, he's probably going to play tonight. I just think he's too important to what they do down low because Gafford, Lively, Powell, maybe PJ, and obviously AD ain't coming through that door this game either. So there's just nobody down low for this squad who, if you look at their rim defense, they are 30th in rim frequency over their last 10 games and over their last 5 games because everybody and their mama just wants a piece of that rim against this team because there ain't nobody to guard it. So love the opportunity for the Lakers to blow this thing open. And honestly, Luka triple-double. Like, I'm not going to mess with too many props in this game. I think the Lakers are keyed in on giving Luka his revenge and going like, yeah, do you, bro? And he's going to have that 30-point triple-double most likely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably rather go with some Luka props because of that. If we're talking about revenge angle, I mean, ultimately, I bailed off Dallas as a look for me, even though the points are so high that I would rather go that side, to be honest, because in a high-profile game, it's not about revenge for Dallas. It's about not getting embarrassed, right? Not letting Luka just walk over your former teammates. We've seen this team respond pretty well since the trade deadline, winning in Boston immediately. So I do think they come out with a good effort and they don't just get walked over. But yeah, ultimately the complete lack of rim protection against a team that has 3 elite scorers. And yes, Austin Reeves is elite.
Yeah.
Going to the rim or creating for others. Makes me too nervous to think the Mavs are going to hang in here.
The man with the most to gain in a revenge spot on Dallas is Nico Harrison, and he ain't lacing him up for this game. So
yeah, I mean, it is just a regular season game, but for Luka, it's a fire lit under him for sure. So I like under out here, Phoenix and Memphis, but I think just take the Suns team under 118.5 because I mean 245 is crazy high, but honestly Memphis could get that 130 that they do at home plenty, and then the Suns are probably just going to slink off the court like we've seen because they've just been falling apart. They are like the Sixers West. They just have no chemistry. No positive vibes. So I don't think that either, even if this is a close game, I don't think they're necessarily going to be in the 120s. And like I said, if Memphis continues to crush them on fast break and points off turnovers, which is where Phoenix has been getting crushed, then they're probably just going to run away the other way. So, I mean, I'm fine with a look at just Memphis to cover 7.5 or 8 here. But Phoenix's offense, if you look, at 2-8 in their last 10, they are 21st in offensive rating, second to worst assist to turnover ratio. And that shows the chemistry or lack thereof. I mean, they've got 3 good scorers, great scorers in some cases, but like they ain't doing anything for each other. And Memphis in the 2 against Phoenix has only allowed 8 mid-range attempts per game. And that's kind of the way Memphis defends at times, right? They're just like, all right, we're going to let you take above the break threes. Certain guys can take above the break threes. And Phoenix has shot 28% on those above the break, which is not an outlier because they're actually bottom 10 shooting above the break in their last 10. And they're also dead last in rim frequency in that span. So that's actually where Memphis has been getting hurt recently, but they've kind of slowed it down in their last 7, only a 100 pace, which is slow for them. A little bit of shooting regression on offense. Now they come back home though, where They could, like I said, they could explode, but they should be solid defensively. They actually have the second best defensive rating in the fourth quarter in these last 7. And then the Suns, yeah, like they've gone under this total in 8 of their last 9 on the road in regulation. The only exception is at Chicago after Chicago pulled the plug on their season. Memphis, yeah, has done a pretty good job guarding these guys and could easily run away with this one.
Yeah, they could. I consider just taking them. The Suns are almost Philly West. I mean, not quite that bad because, right, yeah, but they should be viewed as we're still just giving them this cachet because they have Kevin Durant, Brad Beal, and Devin Booker. But 3 guys does not a basketball team make. So there's going to be plenty more going on with, and like think about it, Memphis. Yes, Ja's awesome. Triple J's been awesome. Desmond Bane's back to being awesome. They have like 9 other guys that they can throw at you, and like 7 of them are, B plus and better defenders. So like I don't necessarily trust the Suns to be able to get theirs. This is the exact defense to take on the Suns, right? This would be a horrible matchup for the Suns if they were even going to make the playoffs. This would not be a team they'd want to face, one where they take away your pull-up shooting. You got to spot up and you got to pass the ball around the horn and you have to get the assist percentage high. And the Suns ain't doing that, right? I still think Book is actually probably good for some assists in this game. If you can get him at like 6.5, they're going to pressure the ball out of his hands. He's gotten 9 dimes against them in both games this season, but yeah, love Memphis a lot more in this one, and I think a lot of people agree with us here. So no problem with the Suns under in that one. Let me go over to Cleveland, Orlando, which is normally a pretty awesome matchup, and we are not going to have Jalen Suggs, so it's really frustrating me because if Jalen Suggs was in, I'd be like, let's get that over at 222.5, and let's also get Orlando to cover 7.5. But doubt this 7.5 spread would be what it is if Suggs was in. That's how important he is to this team. Things that you and I have been talking about this season. But I do like the over at 222.5, and it's got bet down to let me get there. You might see this at 221.5, but I think it's going to hold around 222, 223 leading up into the game here today. Cleveland is an over machine. I mean, they're the number 1 over team on the season. They're the number 1 fastest paced team on the season. Oh, and the 7th fastest team on the season, and they are the best offense on the season. Darius Garland is questionable. So here's what I'll say. Like if Darius Garland doesn't play, I love Orlando plus 7.5. If Garland does play, I prefer the over. So I'm good with 222.5, even if Garland is out. I just still think the way that this pace is good, that the Cavs are going to push the pace and force the thing there, that's going to be enough to get us over. But like I said, if Garland is ruled in, I do prefer to get Orlando at about plus 7, even plus 6.5 or so. But once again, back to the over, just to focus on that for a minute. Like the games that the Cavs are playing away from home, they're 16-6 as away favorites, 18-8 away from their building to the over in general, wherever they're playing, away from their building. But games average 122 to 114 in these situations. The game they played at Cleveland earlier in the season was a 120 to 109 affair with the Cavs there at Cleveland. Obviously, Magic lost. They didn't have Paolo in that game either. So they had just started the transition really from playing with Fraulo to now Franz and soon to be without both of them. But Paolo missing in that one was obviously a big deal. Couldn't really get to the free throw line, relied on threes a lot more. And Paolo versus Jalen Suggs, that's the swap here, right? Paolo's in, Suggs out, and that definitely leads to a lot more offense. Paolo, a good defender, but is also a superstar that doesn't really take on the other team's best defender unless he's forced to play like against Giannis in certain situations, but he's really not out there to guard the best player on the other team. That's Jalen Suggs. On offense, as good as Suggs has been this season and above his normal averages in terms of threes and shooting and the rest for him, it's still Paolo. Like Paolo looks more like, I don't know, LeBron at times, like with the way he plays his game than others, right? Not quite the facilitator, not trying to compare him his athleticism, but the way that he plays the game at his size, like he's going to facilitate for others and continue, which is why their offensive rating is 6 points better per 100 possessions with Paolo rather out there than without him. And that's including the 6-game streak where he was just shooting poorly right when he came back from injury here about 3 weeks ago now, had a horrible couple games and then has really pulled it together, which is a really big benefit of playing like Atlanta twice, is that you're going to figure out how to get your offense back if you're a guy like Paolo, and that certainly seemed to do the trick for him. So while everything for Orlando indicates they're playing slow, they're still a very good defense, et cetera, et cetera, they're not going to have the guys up top. There's going to be a lot of Cole Anthony, which is what we've seen, especially if Garland is out and they continue to play a little bit more Cole Anthony than Anthony Black. That's a big sort of lever that Orlando pulls one way or the other. If they pull the Anthony Black lever, we're getting a lot more defense. They pull the Cole Anthony lever, we're getting a lot more offense. So without Garland, there's a little bit less of a need for that wing defense and a lot more to maintain pace with a guy like Donnie Mitchell, who I would also be taking for probably 25 plus to 30 plus points if Garland is out, because that's how you beat this Magic team. So like a lot of stuff for the points here. Would love to see Garland in there for my over, but also don't sleep on Orlando being able to cover this one.
Yeah, I mean, everything about Orlando indicates under, but that's why you're getting a good number with the Cavs, and they just drive overs, which we've seen 5 straight unders for Orlando. But I think there's some positive 3-point regression for both them and their defense in terms of like teams have been shooting like 25% or worse in every matchup, and that's not all defense. Like that's just dudes missing shots, and the Cavs, as we know, are an absolute wagon. They do not miss many of those threes. And they're above the break. 3D is pretty bad on the road at times. So maybe Orlando gets their offense going. Either way, yeah, like Frollo, they're kind of cooking now. So I think they can keep pace enough to either cover this or get us over.
We're saying the same thing. Yeah, we're seeing the upward trajectory for the Magic. They beat up on some bad teams to get there, but that just leads you to get that confidence, right? You see the ball go through the net. So I'm with you on that, but that's all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Make sure to subscribe to that page. Check out the player props episode we have up as well with 4 looks for some player props tonight. And until we see you next, happy betting.